Okay. Thank you all for attending Open Spaces meeting in February. Right, have we got any apologies and absence for reasons given?
No.
Fantastic. Number 52, minutes of the previous meeting. We didn't have a core at the meeting, so to amend the agenda, have a proposer and a secretary, is that what I do on this bit?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'll propose that we amend the item to say to resolve to agree the notes of the meeting the 26th of January 2022.
That's notes. That's notes,
Have a
please.
second, please. Second.
All agreed? Thank you.
And then you've got to,
Do I have to sign the notes?
no, but you have to now agree the agenda item.
Yeah. So it's been amended. Now you have to
And
agree.
then
Can we now agree the amended notes from the meeting of the 26th, 2022?
I'll propose because I was the only other person there, so
Yeah.
I accept that they're the right.
Thank you very much. Job done.
Just sign what's on there.
Lovely, thank you. I don't want it later on.
Just put the date on the side.
Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. To receive any declarations of interest in accordance with the requirements of the Localisation Act 2011 and to consider any request for dispensations in respect of pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest in agendaed items. Have we any declarations of interest, please?
No.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Item 54, clerk's report, please.
Most everything is included elsewhere in the agenda. There is just the issue of there's lots of rubbish being strewn around Carter's Park, especially this weekend. It's reported by the locking up service and the antisocial behaviour and the graffiti artist who's been doing these worst around the park again. But the police are aware.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all we can do, really, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Right, item 155, Carter's Park, to resolve to agree the situation regarding the key for HUFC. Everybody read the letter?
Hmm.
Yeah.
I still can't understand why they need one. It doesn't. I've read the emails and I've read the letter. I don't understand if they only need access to the dog run to be able to get the balls out of the dog run. Why do they need a key? Because it's open all the time. It doesn't make any sense to me. And we can't give them a key anyhow because then that means that they've got access to all of our areas at any point, and that's not acceptable. We can't do it.
My impression was it's when they belt it across the back, so it's where the cricket bit is. They have to go through the dog run to access and go over and into the park instead of going round through the side gates into the where they. That's how I understood it. I don't think it's the ball going into the dog run. It's going.
But they can access that area through their own gate. They've got a gate in that piece of fence. They can access out and go that way. I don't understand where they're trying to access that they can't access at any other point.
Odd one, isn't it?
Yeah. There is, their own fence has got gates in it that are padlocked, that they maintain and they look after them. We don't have anything to do with that. So if they would need to access into the park, they can either go through there or they can come out and in through our gates. They can get into the dog run because it's unlocked at all times. So there is no area that they can't access.
The only area that they can't access is the bowls club.
Yeah, but they can because they have got they've got the code to be able to access it.
So there is no need.
There is no need, as far as I can understand it.
Unless they're gates that go out to the cricket pitch. You know, if they need to crop that and put a new block on it, that's up to them, isn't it?
It is, but they can still access the cricket bit, whether they use that gate or whether they don't use that gate. They can physically go out of their area
Yeah.
and in our entrances. There's nothing to stop them doing it. And you're not telling me that in the middle of a match everything stops so they go and collect a ball. It doesn't work like that.
No.
They're going to wait until a convenient point and then they'll collect all the balls up. So I don't really understand what they're trying to say.
So there was a reference to how long it takes them to go and retrieve the ball. So whether that's because they're going that long way round through the dog room, I don't know. And it seemed to be for speed. I think for a match, don't you have to have a certain number of balls anyway, in case one goes out, they can still remain in play?
They have, I think it's 3 or 4.
3 or 4. So
They have them, no, but they have their reserves, what they keep pitch side. And they tend to send a runner, not a member of the team, to go and retrieve. They have gophers.
yeah.
I think that's, I don't know what the term is, but people who will go and fetch.
So the reference in there was they have got a lack of volunteers, and the actual process of fetching the balls is taking too long. But we did say that keys would only go out to members of staff, which they're not. Can we not agree then to write back to them and say, I'm sorry, but you do have access to the areas.
Exactly.
How you access them or how long it takes you is unfortunately not.
No, I mean, this is the rules we've set and they do have access, it's not as if they don't,
Yeah.
so.
If we'd got an area locked up off and they couldn't access it, that would be completely different. No area is inaccessible for them, they can get in.
So, to agree the situation is no. You can't.
I think if we write back and just say that no, and the reasons why we spoke about,
Yeah.
I'd propose that.
Write back and say, sorry, that you do have access to the areas and it has been agreement by council not to give out keys.
Yeah.
I think just underlining the fact that there isn't anywhere that they don't have access to, you know, that's under lock and key.
So I'll propose that.
Thank you. Second? Yeah. All agreed?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. To resolve to agree the situation regarding key for the medieval events. I'd like the suggestion Mark put out an email. It's an easy solution for the event.
The best gate for that to be would be the vehicle access gate. Because they're going to have to use the vehicle access gate anyhow to get the stuff in and out. And if they had a key for that, then the rest of the park can then be locked up as normal.
Yeah.
But
And
then
if
they would
emergency
be able
services-
to, if need be, then the emergency services could get in through that gate. And it'd be an easy one just to swap out without having any
No,
issue.
no. So we agreed to, I mean, we have got some locks or they supply their own.
No, we've supply.
Right, so we've got spare
We've got
keys
spare
showing
keys
it.
and locks,
Yeah.
and then at least we know that we're in control of it still. If we needed to get in for whatever reason, we could still get in because we'd have the key to do it.
So,
Can I just make a quick point?
yeah,
Just for clarity, because obviously the point we've just discussed was about giving out a key, now we're talking about giving out another key. This is no different to what we've done for the event. They've always had access to those vehicle access gates, so we're actually just really agreeing to provide what we've always provided
Is
for
it
them for
so-
that one event, not give out a key indefinitely, aren't we?
this is it. Rather what's written on the agenda is we're going to give them a new lock for that one gate.
Just for the duration of the
The,
event.
the
And then it'll
event,
be
yeah.
So to put spare padlock on vehicle access gate just for event.
Yeah.
Super.
So can I propose it, please? Seconder? Steve? All agreed? Oh, did everybody go? Thank you.
Yeah.
And to resolve to agree the situation regarding key for the food festival. Same principle?
Yes, but no. In that the reason we're giving a key to the medieval event is because they wish to be there overnight.
Okay.
Is it not? Yes. If there's nobody staying overnight for the food festival, there will be, the gates can be unlocked for them in the morning and the day that they're setting up. So they don't actually need access any other times other than when they need
Is
to
it a
get.
weekend event this time?
It's Saturday and Sunday. If they were going to need access because there's somebody in there overnight, then that's a different thing altogether. But getting into the premises on the day, that's surely down to us to make sure that they've got access and not necessarily have to give out a key.
Because usually someone does stay on site, don't they, over the
They
weekend?
have done in the past, but that hasn't been
I don't think
said
it
at
was
this
last year.
point.
No,
They was there last time.
I don't think so. I was there both days.
I think the issue is that we can't say we're going to give out a key for an event for no reason if we're not going to give out a key to the football club, because they will say, well, why are you giving them a key but you're not giving us a key? Whereas what we're saying is the park is open from 8 or 7 or whatever time in the morning, so therefore that gate will be unlocked at the point that they need it unlocking, and then it'll be shut off again until they need to vacate. That we can manage ourselves. We can have a member of staff or a councillor or whoever there to unlock, so we don't then need to issue a key. It's only for them coming in to set up. Once they're in there, they don't need that access point anymore, do they?
So do we need some more information from the organiser to know what they're actually doing?
I think for me, the issue is purely if there is a need to have an emergency access because there's people in there overnight, then we follow the same process as we do for the medieval event.
Yeah.
If there is not that need, then it is up to us to make sure that they have access at the specified time that they want to access the park. So say on, I don't know what the timings are, but if they're setting up on the Friday, then presumably that is in their working time, so they'll have access to bring things in on that day. If they then need access again on the Saturday morning, we will either have to pay a member of staff to do that, or one of the councillors will open up those gates for them to do that. But those gates are open from either 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, regardless of whether it's a Saturday or a Sunday, aren't they? So there is no need for them to have a key.
There is no need.
I just think, back at what Isabel said, in the sense of if there becomes a need from their information nearer the time when they give us a little bit more details on it, then follow the same thing as what the medievals do. They've got the one gate, they can access it. If they, as part and parcel of that lock being issued, if they can sign it out, sign it back in again, then we've got that reusability for the same issue.
So going by the agenda, are we keeping it as it is and using the precept we've set on the other two?
I've put here, if emergency access for people overnight and same as B, which is medieval then, otherwise no key. Is that what
Yeah.
everyone's agreeing?
Can I propose it, please? Bill, seconder? Mark, all agreed? Discuss the antisocial behaviour in Carter's Park. Well, we all know what's going on. All we can do is keep liaising with the police and keep logging things. There's very little we can do.
I personally think the other thing that we should be doing is using our contact through the school now, and saying that we are having issues, and hopefully they then can divulge that through to their young people and say that, you know, we don't want to say that they can't come in the park, that is not, but they do need to treat things with respect while they're in there. And there were a group on the tennis court on Saturday when I drove by, and I did go in there and I did speak to them. And to be fair to them, there was one of them that was quite aggressive initially because they didn't like being approached, but when I just explained the situation, I said, you know, don't mind you being in here, but you just need to treat things with respect, because they've got a bike in there and they were trying to do skids and everything on there. So you can have your bike in here, but please do not ride it, because it is an area that takes a lot of maintenance, etc., etc. And I have no problem with them attempting to kick the ball over the net, but if they're going to mess about with the net and they make it sag, that's a different thing altogether. And they were okay and they were respectful. What they were like after I went, I don't know. But you can't say you can't do anything.
We can't stop them.
We can't stop them in any way, shape or form. It's just making them understand that there are other users in there and that they have to treat the area with respect.
I think we have got to be careful in relation and be protective of our staff as well, in the sense of we need to be reporting it back through the clerk so that it can then get reported through the police and do it in that route, as opposed to having members of staff getting involved, because I think it would potentially lay them open to certain risks. So I just think again we go through that process of reporting it and try and knock it out in that way, as opposed to putting staff at risk as well.
Yeah, well, I think the enforcement and information given to our staff of what to do has been covered recently.
Yeah.
So hopefully follow that. But also with you saying liaising with the school, I think not just targeting one school,
No.
it needs to go out to the local schools. Because obviously we have children from many areas come here.
We do,
So, and I just don't want that school to think they're being targeted. I know it's the majority are from that
Yeah.
school, but we have
Absolutely.
school people
And
from
it's not
Hyde,
just-
grammar.
Yeah, and it is not also just that age group. There is
No.
an element of that age group, but you have got younger children there
Yeah.
as well that get pulled into a situation.
Yeah.
So I think it needs to be a blanket that goes to all schools, saying that we are having these issues. If there's any opportunity for them to speak to their young people and address some of the things that are happening, then we will be very grateful
So something from the office to
to.
the surrounding schools. Are you happy with that?
Yeah.
Anything else on the antisocial behaviour?
Just on the attack onto that communication, can we have the littering in there as well, in relation to contacting the schools about what was up this weekend? Just make it,
Well, in town it's been most nights, so you can take that on definitely. Okay. To resolve to agree the scheme for the slide. Does everybody have a look? Interesting reading?
Yeah, now, just so you don't all panic, I'm not proposing that we go for the full scheme. I'd love to, but unfortunately we haven't got the funds. We have got the grant and we have got what was allocated for this year's budget and also what's allocated for next year's budget. There may be a little bit of leeway that we can take a bit out of the projects money for next year as well. But what I've asked both of these companies to do was to re-quote on the scheme that they originally submitted, which was with no budget restrictions on it whatsoever, but just to come up with a scheme that would suit that particular area. Ideally, what I would like to do is develop it over a period of time so that we replace the slide initially, and obviously then that will sort out the issue at the top, because there are issues around trapping of fingers and all sorts of things with the area at the top. Obviously the foundations of the slide are coming, they're being seen through the mud at the moment, so that would address all of that. And if we have the budget, then we create one route up that is of interest, so either a scramble net or pull rope or whatever, depending on what we can afford to do. And then later on, you can then create another route up when you've got more budget. So the idea was that what are our thoughts around the schemes that have been put together? What elements do we really like? and what elements are we prepared to drop, and then I can go back to them and say, can you quote on this basis, our budget is approximately X.
The scramble now is lovely, but how easy is that to maintain underneath?
It won't be unless you have some wet core of some sort underneath. It's going to be a nightmare. I mean, if you notice, there are a couple of them whereby they have allowed for some wet core underneath. But it may be that we can come up with something else, or they can come up with something else that would work with the surface that we've got already. I mean, obviously, one of the slides they've done a bit more of a wiggle slide on. One is a double width, so that you can get 2 or more children down at any one time. You have got the option of just a single straight slide, which would potentially be cheaper. It's what are we thinking ultimately? What do we want to achieve by that area? Albeit we're going to have to do it in little bits. So I don't know whether there's particular elements that you would say, yes, I definitely want to see that, or...
I just think it's amazing work what they can come up with. The creativity is phenomenal. What I am more concerned with is that we address first of all and foremost those issues around the safety of the people that are using it, without then, we could, like you said, with adding to it bit by bit, getting the issues of trapping out the way is, to me, the highest thing that we should be looking for. And then maybe do a little poll and put it out there to, you know, as it create a bit of fun around the idea, to put it out to the public and say, how would you know, like to climb the mountain? Would it be a scramble? Would it be this? Would it be that? And get some responses from the people that are going to use it. But ultimately, stripping it down to the basics so the health and safety issues are done is my thoughts, and then adding to it bit by bit, and you know, that creativity that comes through from the users is going to be the way forward with it. As I'm a bit too old to use slides now, so.
Never too old.
But the thing is that I remember that slide from when I was back as a child, and it just it feels a shame to change it, because it's that it's a statement.
Completely different from when we was younger.
I know, but it's still you know, it's still.
But we can't address the top until we know what sort of slide we're going to have, because obviously it's got to attach to the the top.
Yeah, that comes together in that you've got the whole scheme that would be sorted out with whatever slide you're going to do. I mean, it depends on what budget. I mean, what budget do you want me to work to? I mean,
the quotes are quite.
I mean, they are obviously...
There's a lot of digging involved in that quote.
Yes. Now, you see, we can potentially spend money if our staff can remove the existing, albeit they're not going to sculpt the mound or do anything like that. That is going to have to happen with the company. But if we could get them to be able to remove the existing, the slide is able to be scrapped because it's stainless steel, so it's going to have some value. So you're going to gain a bit back from there if they've got the time to do it, which we can discuss with them. So that element, you could probably reduce the costs down by £1.5 to £2 grand maybe.
So is our mound too big?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, there's different lengths of slide you've got, and then they will work with what they've got as the longest slide, and then they will adjust the mound accordingly.
So we can't find something to work with the mound we've got?
Well, they've seen the mound, they know what the mound is, and they've done their calculations based on that. So whatever they've put together is what they think is the best scenario around the situation.
So
I mean, obviously
they can't work with that mound then, because obviously...
Well, they can work with the mound. They're not going to take the whole mound away and then start building it up again. They're going to sculpt the mound to suit whatever they need to put in, and it may be that it needs to be reduced slightly in height. It may be that it is purely about excavating further into the mound so that the slide sits further in rather than sitting on top, which is currently what it's doing. But obviously there is excavation work that would need to be done to be able to work with it, or you flatten the whole mound and you then have a standalone piece, but that's, you're going to have loads of soil that...
There was a reason why we haven't got a standalone piece.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
It's, the reason the prices are what they are is that I did not give them a budget, because I didn't know what our budget was going to be, and I wanted them to come up with schemes, and I wanted them to come up with whatever they thought was going to work, so that we can then cherry pick and say, well, we like that, then what is the whole budget going to come together? So what we need to decide is what budget I'm working with, and what elements are you absolutely... I mean, obviously, the first element is the slide. You can't go without the slide, can you?
like I said, the
But
top.
then, are you prepared to forego all new routes up at this stage, and they just literally climb the mound as they do now, and then add those in later to be able to get a better slide? That's the sort of thing I need to know, and then I can feed that back to them.
That's where I was coming from.
I would, if it was me, I would suggest that they give you a price on guys taking
Yeah.
the old slide away
Yeah.
and leaving it with the bare mound.
Yeah.
And then, same as what Stephen said, just go for a basic route up,
Yeah.
and then farm it out to the people that are going to be using it to say, what would you prefer? Because it might be that they want something similar to like a fun farm type climbing area up the side to go onto the top of it, or if they want a cargo net or scramble net, that sort of thing, then, you know, put it out to them to see what they want.
Okay, so right, the item is to read the scheme for the slide, so are we going back to the company with different questions?
Yeah, I'm happy to go back to them and say, this is where we're looking at. I mean, I will base it on what I know that we've got in the budget, with a little bit of leeway that we can take slightly more if need be, and see what they can come up with.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant, thank you very much.
So the proposal is to go back to the company, tell them our budget, and our guys will remove the old one. Yeah.
Yeah, we can discuss that when we have the work scheduling with them this week, and just, because if it's not an option for them to do that, if they really can't do it, then obviously that is, we're going to have to still allow that within the costing,
So
so.
if I add if it's option to the end of
Yeah.
that, you're happy. So can
Second? All agreed? Thank you. Okay. Discuss the removal, fence removal around the picnic area. Okay,
Has this not been discussed before?
Mhm.
and has, but
I
I
thought
think
it has.
we've got different ideas of what was being removed.
Okay. I'll jump in. I thought it was the far, as you look through from the park, it was sort of the bit that goes up to the bowls green, and then the bit around the other side, because a part of that is the boundary between the bowls green and the old tennis court, isn't it? But that was that's what I thought. I thought that bit was remaining. All the rest was going, so it was all open. Opens it right out, no hiding spaces, that sort of thing.
That's what I thought, but
It is, in general, that is where we're headed for. The reason that you think that it's been agreed that we're doing something different is that when we met the staff down there for the Bowls Club, we looked at what could be done fairly quickly, and which areas we could open up more routes to get through to try and stop some of the traffic that's going just one way.
yeah.
So, yes, as much of the fence that can be removed needs to be removed, but if it's a matter of getting some done to be able to make it function, and obviously then we're going to be creating a whole Jubilee garden within there, so it needs to work with that as well. What we suggested was taking, I think there's about 3 or 4 sections out initially to allow for better movement, and then once we know how the Jubilee garden's going to be mapped out, because we don't know that yet, then we can look at whether we need to retain any or whether it all comes out or whatever, because once you take it out, you're going to put it back. Because you've got trees growing within it as well. that's your other issue. So you may well, if you're trying to save the tree, you can probably cut around it, but you may not be able to take the whole thing out, if you see what I mean.
I just think it's going to be dark, leaving 1 or 2 panels there, it's going to look a bit dark.
It is, if they can all come out, then absolutely, but you've got to work with what you've got, and if you've got, I mean, there are some trees that are up here, and all the fencing is growing in between it, so you've got to cut away what you can cut away. You may end up not then being able to dig down to get out the actual metal strut because of the way the tree roots and everything are without damaging the trees. So you've got, it's a matter of working with what you can see. If the easy bits you get rid of first, and then you work around whatever
I
else.
definitely want that dead alley bit took out
Yeah, exactly.
with the
Yeah.
metal arch
Yes,
framing.
exactly, that's the whole point.
That,
We need that sorting out, so it's about prioritising, because it could bog them down for a very long time if they're going to just be working on that for, I don't know, they could be stuck with that for about 2 weeks and we won't get anything else done. I don't want that to happen. I'd rather than be able to go in there one day, create an opening, and then if they have to go off and do something else, they go off and do something else, and then come back and create another opening, rather than saying, right, we want the whole lot out and we want it doing this month, and then
we
it's
wouldn't
just...
do that. It
No, but that's the idea. It's not that we're not going to take it all out. The idea is to open up the space. That is what the idea is. But we may have to leave certain bits because of the way that things are growing in there, or that
I
it's just not
certainly would
practical
not
to do
want
it.
to destroy any tree, but if it's the sake of having one panel sitting there with a tree woven into it, we remove and plant a new tree.
Yeah.
Because it is just going to look dark having one fence panel sitting there.
Yeah.
So until we start actually taking them out and seeing how it looks, it's not something you can actually visualise. I just wanted to make it clear what we was actually doing within this area.
I think on this one, I think a lot of that, the reasoning for that on the agenda in this instance is the communication going back between everyone in the loop of what's going on. Because like yourself, it was like when we put it on the agenda, it was to remove that whole area. And I think the first we knew then of it was when the groundsman sort of said to us, well, we're going to take that panel, that panel, and that panel. And it was sort of more like, well, no, we were taking it all down. So I think it's just that communication side, making sure.
Making it clear what we're doing.
Yeah, but if the aim is to remove it all as and when we can get to it, but again, I am also aware that until you get to the designing of the Jubilee Garden, it might be that you need 3 panels or 4 panels leaving in for that reason.
To create something around it, you may need a bit of a structure.
But I think that's not initially what was agreed when we put it on the agenda.
I think we should steam ahead, open it up to anything that's not going to endanger. We're going to be coming into deference very soon, so we shouldn't be disturbing the hedges or trees. They may have to stay until deference period of the season ends because it's a park. Let's just crack on, open it up, work with the Jubilee Garden. The idea is to open it all up. Let's do it the best way we can and the easiest route.
Get started.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
So we're happy with that discussion and work with it as we go along.
Yeah.
Can I propose it?
It's just to discuss.
Need panels.
Just discussing, no agreeing, please. Right, Neverfield to discuss and resolve to agree the installation of a fence around the play equipment as requested by a parishioner. So, Stephen?
Can I just have a clarification on, it says a parishioner, is that one person?
Yes.
Not the majority, not a majority, it's not. Okay, thanks.
We know this cropped up before when they was looking at the plans yonks ago before the equipment went in there. And with the new planting we'll be doing down there as buffer zones, do we need a fence? Isabel?
Personally, I don't think you do need a fence, and as it is only one parishioner that's asked for it, A, we haven't got anything in the budget, so we can't do it, and B, let's just see how it all pans out first. you know, ultimately the issue is the children have nowhere to run to. It is an enclosed area. They're not going to run out and go into traffic. Dogs should be on leads, so they should not be going anywhere near the children anyhow. If they're not being controlled, that's something that, unfortunately, that's down to owners. We can't enforce that. We have put that dogs should be on leads, and everybody has got to share an area. You start hiving a little bit off and just saying, "Oh, we'll fence that bit in," it doesn't really make for a very pleasant area, I
You
don't
need to
think.
have a very high fence.
Yeah.
Was there a specific reason given by the parishioner?
Yeah, it was because somebody had an off-lead dog that ran up to a child and the child was frightened and the dog appeared aggressive and the dog wasn't being controlled by the owner.
Can I also then add, is it worth putting a dogs off lead sign the same as what we're doing down Holmes Bank?
We have got one down Netherfields.
Okay, so it shouldn't happen then?
No.
No.
It is extremely hard for us to enforce.
I think that the point being there, it is a public open space, and I presume we've responded to the parishioner to say that, you know, we're sorry they've experienced that. But, you know, we have to, when we're spending public money, it's for the whole benefit of the parish. And we can't, you know, we wish we could do something just for one request, but if we keep it monitored, and hopefully they reported it as well, if it was a serious, you know, a serious issue. But, you know, at the end of the day, if it's just that, what is that just the only one report we've had?
Yes.
And that play equipment's been in there for some time now. But, you know, it's probably a bit scary at the time, but I don't think, I can't agree to be putting a fence up, unfortunately.
So, we've discussed it, and it's not feasible for us to put a fence down there. Can I propose it? Stephen?
Yeah.
Seconder, Isabel, we all agree? Do you correspond with them? Okay. So this was the tree planting in Netherfields. I know we're just looking at different ideas of what we've got coming.
Yeah, well, it will be very much dependent on going down there and just placing them and working out the best scenario with what we've got, really. There's several large trees that we've got, and then you've got some smaller ones as well. Obviously, the priority is that buffer zone between the football and the play area, and getting that football goalpost moved, because obviously we don't want the trees damaging, so we do need to reduce the size of the football pitch, as we agreed previously. So it is a matter, it will be on one of the main jobs that they've been able to get on with and do. So
Have we got a list of the types they sent?
there is, they did tell us what there was going to be, but
Because obviously some trees don't do well, and there are other trees and bits and pieces, so it's
there is a
quite-
list. It's been circulated as to what they
I know there was types, it just didn't tell me how many of what and where.
Oh, I don't think it tells you exactly how many. It just
No.
tells you that you will get a variety of
Yeah.
this and this.
I'd like to see what we've actually
They're out the
got.
back.
And see how
Some of
we're
them
gonna
are,
do it.
they're not labelled, so it is a matter of working them out.
There was an email apologising, saying that
Yeah.
Yeah.
there was some they couldn't send, and more of others, so, yeah, like you said, we've just got to...
Be careful, and then certain trees do better in certain positions and things, and we've got to make the most of what we've been sent.
Mm.
So I want to be a bit careful about planting, so that we do the best for
Yeah.
them. Okay, so
So
Is
what,
it-
I mean, do you want to be there then, Rachel? Because if you've got some knowledge, then we
I
need-
think we all should be down there to have a look where we want these trees. It's open spaces. You know, everybody's input is valuable.
we've got to find a date, then we can all do, haven't we?
Yeah.
That's that,
And
and
tie
they
in
need
with the
to.
staff.
Yeah, exactly. They are working
Mm.
only between certain times, and
Yeah.
we need a decision to be made rather rapidly because they need planting. Because they've been out there now, what, 3 weeks, if not 4?
Are they potted or bare root?
So they need
They
planting.
do.
So we can't really faff around for much longer. I mean, if you can look at the list of the ones that we were meant to be sending, if you can say this should be not near that, then we can work with it and send that information to the staff. I mean, hopefully they've got some knowledge as well, but I'm not entirely sure
Okay,
of
find
the
out.
depth of knowledge that they've got.
It's just remembering how big these things are going to get in years to come, and the
Yeah.
you know, and the scheme. I think we had a little drawing, didn't we? A soft
Yeah,
drawing
well, to be,
of how we
yeah.
wanted them to sort of be. But you got to remember that tree that's in there like that's going to end up like.
Yeah. It's-
yeah.
I mean, that it's a matter of trying to make the best of what we've got, tree-wise, and there's obviously the buffer zone that needs to be done, and then there's the area from the car park end that we need to add in some more trees somewhere there, because it is very open and it does blow across there a lot. So it's about making those areas a little bit more tree friendly.
Yeah, and bear in mind, I mean, some of the trees, what roots are more closer to the surface than others. We don't want them damaging the tarmac in like 20 years' time.
Oh, no.
Squashing the houses.
That as well. So, okay, I'll look at the list of trees and I'll have a look
You
at
need
that.
to go back sort of before Christmas with what they said that they were going to be sending us with
Oh,
the
look,
varieties.
I'm about tomorrow, I can come in daylight and have a look what's out
I
about.
think the email was a bit later, which said
Yeah.
there's not so many of these and there's more of
Yeah.
those.
Well, we'll have a look.
Yeah.
Is everybody happy with that?
Just one thing, once you get that agreed and you've looked at them, is it going to be put onto the red list to be done
Yeah.
ASAP?
Yeah, it is.
Thank you. Okay, is everybody happy with that?
Yep.
Yeah. Right, cemeteries. To resolve to agree the signage for the memorial wall at Foregate, this is what you suggested, Mark.
Yeah. I've spoken to one of the local stonemasons, and in relation to something in keeping with the headstones, granite plaque to go on there, just saying that it's Hallgate Cemetery Memorial Wall, engraved on there and then mounted. They've said that they can do it at around about between £68 and £70.
Just so we can.
So it just denotes of what it actually is. It's only one quote from one of the stonemasons that we currently use. So if you want additional quotes and things like that, I can source that. But
I think it would be nice to have it actually named and signed, what it's actually there and why it's there and what it's for. Anybody else's thoughts?
I mean, it needs to be made more clear what it is for.
yeah,
My only question would be, which side are you planning to put it? Because to me, the garden's the wrong way around.
Yeah. That's my biggest.
Because if you're going around the back of it, you see the garden. So if you're thinking about putting the memorial plaque on that side, then actually, as you walking down, you see it from the front edge, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So we need to decide what we're doing and how we're going to develop that whole area, because it is a bit of a...
So my thoughts were that it was a memorial garden, and the plaques that are on there at the moment on the back of the wall, not the garden side.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. So when you're, as I'm in the process of thinking about getting a rose and a plaque, to me it's a long way around. So that if you was to go to enjoy the roses, the plaques would all be behind and you could see them. So at the moment it's sort of not clear. But then as you approach it, it's actually quite. If there was more plaques across there, with the bronze plaques, etc., and your sign was on there, you would actually go in, and it's the first thing you would see, which I think is rather nice. So I'm quite mixed about it at the moment, because you go round all the roses should be to the side, I think, really, for it to be aesthetically pleasing. But either way, we need to do something with it. But great call on the sign. I think people need to realise what it's that it's there to do that for.
I just think when did the cemetery open? 2007, 2008, something like that.
Yes.
I mean, I know my mum passed away in 2009, and we've got 2 plaques on the memorial wall, and it's just like it's there for a reason, and I just don't think people until I came on the council, I wasn't aware what it was. So
The wall was built 4 years ago,
Yeah, that's
So-
not been there that long.
so it's not been there that long. But I think if it was sorted out, then people will definitely.
Yeah.
And I think your sign that you're talking about, I can imagine that attracting that kind of attention. But it might be nice to duplicate the garden to the other side as well, and you've got gardens front and rear, and then you can't get it wrong, can you? And then if we overspill, we can go on the other side.
I was led to believe the other side of the path at the back of the wall, which is left to grass, is for scattered remains. Because there's certain rules of how and where you can scatter.
Yeah, it's in the policies.
Yeah, but there is actually some other bits and pieces, obviously no areas you can walk on, bits and pieces, and that's why that area was left. That's what I was led to believe. So hence that being untouched and the garden going that side. So things we can look into, as we know we'd like to reduce the rose bed, which has been agreed anyway. There's nothing to stop us bringing some roses further in the future towards the front of the wall. You know, we can now add to this. But definitely the signage I think is a good idea. So to agree for signage for the memorial wall, have a proposal please. Mark, Isabel second. And I think that's a fair price that's been given. If we are happy for it to go out and look at a couple of other prices and styles. Who would like to do what?
Yes.
It's the
So I
minimal,
don't
it's
think
minimal
it's
spend.
recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Have to.
No, I know we don't have to, but I'm just putting it out.
I think if the plaque was in, you know, because that wall's, I like the wall, you know, the mortar. If the plaque was really in keeping with that, as opposed to, you know, being a different marble or whatever, sort of more of a stone, that would look fabulous on there. So, no, I think it's my backing. So,
So we all agree.
yeah.
So
If we can just, by the next meeting, if we could have a bit of a idea of what
what is?
it's going to look like,
we get a picture of the colour or
Yeah.
something.
then we can agree that we're happy and move
Yeah.
forward.
I'm happy to do that now.
Yeah, no problem.
Fantastic, thank you very much.
Does everybody agree to that?
Yes.
Yeah.
To discuss and resolve to agree plaques for veterans, and Mark, you?
Yeah, I again I was from the same supplier sourced the price for what they charge for putting the plaques on down there. The cost of the plaque, the engraving and the mounting again is £70 per plaque.
So is this to mark any veterans in particular, or?
No, it was just really in relation to a comment that came out from last year's Remembrance Parade about the reduction in veteran numbers to our parade, and obviously at the last parade that we had there was only one veteran there. Now I don't know whether that's worth speaking to interested parties to see if they want to put any plaques up there, and again just to source, it was just really to source an idea to suggest if anyone did want to do that, you know, and again just utilise the wall for what it's there for remembrance point of view.
I can't say the word, to celebrate our
Commemorate.
veterans, that's the word, thank you. Of our parish in general, or are you on about specific people?
Again, it was just an open suggestion and for discussion as to, you know, what people thought.
Okay.
So
I mean, it's a lovely idea to remember anything like that. And obviously we have the Commonwealth graves within Park Road as well. It would be nice to have something down at Hallgate Cemetery for veterans in general.
I think one area that we could look at to make it a bit more a bit more pointed or a bit more specific, is we're currently on the 40th anniversary for the Falklands. So maybe something, you know, aimed at that sort of direction.
Okay, well, this is to agree plaques for veterans. Do we put something up to prevent that word you said for our veterans of the parish? Stephen?
Are we talking about a plaque for one plaque for all of them? Because I think that's lovely. Because if you then go to individuals, there's a lot that you know the will soon get. That I think it's quite nice to. I might have pulled up that one particular point. If it was a plaque, and then we're looking at a cost there, but then you're going to get other groups saying, well, what about us and what about us and what? So before you know it, you can open, you know, a bit of a. It's so lovely, but it's like one of those things. Well, by doing one gesture, then there'll be other gestures, like the Royal British Legion want one, and then someone else want one, someone else want one, and before you know it, you've got all these other.
You do one in general for land, sea and air.
But that was my question. Is it one to cover the whole topic? And that's obviously going to have to be very carefully worded to be inclusive for everybody and to show our, you know, deepest gratitude. But I think it's a wonderful idea, but it's got to be right, because you make one mistake, it's a bit like a bench that got put in and realise there's a spelling mistake on it. You know, it's just one of those real. It's got to be 100% accurate.
So,
a brilliant idea, thank you.
To agree plaques for veterans, so can we agree that we will look into our wording and how we want to do something that what are you happy with, Mark?
Yeah, no, I'm fine to just, like I say, it was primarily just to bring an idea about, again, how to link in different parts of, you know, what the parish is and the people that we've had in the parish and currently got in the parish, and that was just one idea. So it was more really to open a discussion, and you know, to sort of like agree a potential way forward as opposed to anything that I had got in mind as a direct thing.
So to agree a plaque with open to more discussion in the future when we can come up with a suitable wording or idea, or how would you like to get this on the off the agenda?
I think we can actually agree that, you know, the fact of putting a plaque up for the veterans is a great idea, and if we agree that, then it gives us a direction to put our heads together and come up with some really nice alternatives to what we want, and then go for the. So we can agree it because it's a great idea at the cost of £70 for all the plaque. But it's the content that's going to take a bit of work, so I'd happy to propose that a plaque would go on.
Yeah, so Stephen's proposed, and seconded please, Mark? Are we all agreed? Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So a little bit more info later
A
on.
bit more work.
Yeah.
Well
Allotments, to receive an update on the voting list please.
So we can now let 3 plots at Battlefields, because the notices that we sent where rent hadn't been paid have now expired. So we make 3 very individual people quite happy, I think. I had somebody on the phone today. So if everyone's agreed, I will contact them and offer them an allotment each.
Okay, do we have to clear the allotments or anything's got to be done?
No, it is entirely up to the people. I think
Taken on.
taken over.
Okay. Okay.
I'm presuming that includes the person that was missed previously.
Sorry?
It includes the person that was missed previously from the
Yes.
waiting list.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's a little bit more.
Oh, it's just that there are currently 13 people on the allotment waiting list, so there's
Popular, isn't it?
the Battlefields is, yeah, very popular.
Okay, thank you very much. To receive an update on the rubbish clearance about Battlefield, please.
We should be doing it tomorrow.
Fabulous.
I have tried to get hold of him today, but he hadn't, so I'll try again in the morning.
Brilliant. So it's imminent, that's great. To resolve to appoint an allotment officer. This popped up from your training, didn't it? So it highlighted that we need one.
Why? And should it not be a paid member of staff? Because if, I mean, reading your policy, which we're reviewing later, an allotment officer is able to make decisions, and as councillors we cannot make decisions.
No.
So it's
I
either
think
got to be a paid member of staff, which then begs the question that you're already dealing with stuff anyhow, so does it need to be an allotment officer? Or we...
In the training they said you should have an allotment officer as a liaison between the allotment holders and the council,
But you are that.
but to report back, so somebody who could report back to open spaces and say this person says this, person says that. But I mean, you don't have to have one if you don't want one, it's just...
Surely the point of contact for all allotment holders is the office, and you, as our clerk, report to us directly anyhow.
Happy to do
So I
that.
don't really see that it's necessary to make it another role, because you start putting another person into that role, and you know, the only other person that you're able to do as a paid member of staff will be your new member of staff, which, yes, further down the line may be the way we go, but at this current point we can't do that. And you certainly can't be a councillor because they're not able to make decisions. See?
Based on that, there is a total agreement. How many clerks are there allotment officers for parishes? Did that come up, a question get asked on your training?
No, it's normally a member of council. So normally they have a member of the council that acts as an allotment officer, or a representative, because some allotments manage themselves in an association, so it's somebody that liaises with them. But yeah, I wasn't looking for a role myself.
No, I'm not
She's
sure.
working on it anyway.
But my issue with it is I can see it causing problems if it is a member of the council, because we could very quickly go down the route where we were before,
Yeah.
whereby
Definitely.
one person is having to make decisions because they're being targeted by tenants and saying, well, I want to do this, you are the allotment officer, you should be able to tell me. And then the fact that it then has to come back through and filter through our systems the way it should do, then they're going to get very frustrated because they think that if they talk to that one person that it should be resolved all straight away. And I think if we stick to our processes as they are currently, in that they report that if they've got an issue, they ring the office, they tell the office what the issue is, that's then reported to us at Open Spaces, we debate it, we decide, go back again. I know it takes a long time, but I think the problem is that if you change that process now, you could end up with more problems than you're trying to solve.
To resolve to appoint an allotment officer is no.
Not currently, I mean, we can review it, I'm not saying never, but we can
At
review
the
it.
moment,
But we do need to be aware, I mean, quite frankly, there's not many times that you actually get any communication from the allotment holders, really, is there?
depends what's happening. We have space.
Yeah.
I think you do also two opportunities, because we meet very regular as Open Spaces, and also full council meets in between. So there's two opportunities to get something on the agenda if it was urgent, whether it be so. I do agree with Isabel that we don't need to.
We do not need to appoint an allotment officer.
Okay, just gonna
We're we're not even agreeing it, so we'll resolve.
Yeah,
We'll
you
resolve,
have to
You still have to do that one, right?
resolve not to.
Proposer? Isabel, second up, Mark, all agreed, sorted, thank you. Right, To discuss and resolve to give consent to allotment holder of plots G9 and G19 for fruit trees and fruit bushes. Stephen?
Have they asked permission because it's going to be a larger space than in our policy?
To create a small orchard, but they are small trees.
Small trees still grow.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and there's rules about whatever and what percentage it's got to be so much has got to be cultivated. If we go out, if we
If
can't.
he's doing an orchard, he's not going to be growing underneath, is he?
No. If it was just one or two, creating a whole orchard down there is not a good idea.
And bushes is things like red currants, black
Currant,
currants,
yeah.
gooseberries, that kind of thing. Just apples and pears is the trees. Something like
It sounds nice. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them you can keep small. But
See,
depends how many.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we clarify how many he's wanting
Yeah.
to plant? Because that, you know, if it's on one allotment and you pretty much fill in half of the allotment with fruit trees, then that's going against what it's
Yeah.
meant to be. So if he's only talking about 4 fruit trees or 6 fruit trees or whatever, then that's a slightly different scenario.
Can you-
75%'s got to be
Yeah.
cultivated. So if it's only you've only got a quarter of that allotment space for fruit.
So can we go back to him and say how many trees do you think we'll plant there?
Can you not make a decision tonight? There's a reason.
Okay, so
No, then.
does that need to be,
I think if we go back to them and say, as per the policy, it can only be 25% of
Yeah.
the plot, can be fruit trees and fruit bushes. If it's 25% of the plot, then I can't see a problem with that. But if it's any more than that, then we can't.
I just want to agree with Mark. I think we can actually agree the item to consent to allotment holders to plots G0 for fruit trees and bushes, providing they don't exceed our policy, which is 25%, and the rest is to be cultivated. And then we're sticking by the policy,
policy hasn't been agreed yet, has it?
but it will
It
be.
will be, go full council.
Well,
We're right
no,
to
we'll
it
be
before
here.
then. Well, we're doing it now to take to full council in April.
Yeah, but
I'm
even
just
under
ironing
the
out the
old
bruises.
policy, you still got that element
Yeah,
of that
it says
it's
the
not
highlighted
meant
bits
to
have
be
changed. Yeah.
full-on orchards or anything like that. It is purely that it should be cultivated.
Okay, so we go back to him saying, as per our policy then,
Yeah.
okay? Thank you. Oh, proposal please, Stephen, seconder. Mark, all agreed? Thank you. Right, discuss and resolve to agree the way forward with the traffic dog road. Thank you for the photos.
Sorry?
Isabel?
I just, it's a farm track. If one person is churning it up because it's wet weather, because they're using heavy machinery, it's up to that person to rectify it. It's not up to us to rectify it. We're providing them with a farm track. It's not meant to be a made-up road. So I don't see that we should be spending taxpayers' money on building up a road that has been churned up. To be fair, if you're taking a tractor, a big tractor down there, you can't help but churn it up in this weather. But last time it happened, it was put right. So they clearly understand the principle that if they make a mess of it, they need to sort it out. So I don't think we need to, I think we need to monitor it, and if we have to contact the person that's caused the problem, then we do so. But it is the middle of winter, and it's not going to be perfect.
Last time we discussed this, it involved us going down to have a look, and Mark Conley's already been. It was heavily churned up and it was very waterlogged and boggy. Our visit triggered something, because by the time we got back round to getting quotes and things to fill in the potholes, which were a health and safety issue, it wasn't the fact of putting a road in. It had already been corrected, and I think that at the end of the day, you know, some vehicles cannot pass on that kind of track, and it isn't safe to do. But as Isabel said, it is a farm track. It's not a public highway. When you go down to battlefield allotments, that is that is highway, it links county council's road, which we're waiting, rely on them to maintain or fill, whatever.
This chap who has got the problem must have known the access when he took the sign on.
I think it's just got worse and worse, which it would do, anything would do that's getting churned up. But the thing was is that it then sort of got put right, and then if you remember, you thanked in a meeting whoever put it right because we didn't know, and now it's gone back again to its because of the time of year. So it's a very seasonal thing, and it's very frustrating when someone can't get down there, but when they're filling in the craters and they're making good after the heavy usage, they're actually helping out at the end of the day. So it must be that we just keep it monitored, but we can't just award thousands of pounds, because I think the quote was about five or six grand to do it, and we haven't got that in the budget to do.
Okay, so the result to agree the way forward is to monitor the situation then?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, Mark.
Can I just add, is it possible to speak to the other two tenants down there that have the larger areas to see if it's possible for them, if one of them put it right last time, that they do it this time as well? Even just some hard colour on the top would make a massive difference to actually get a car down there. It wasn't possible to get a car down there. So
I think after last visit we did write too, and that triggered off whatever the reaction was, so
if it's
we
possible.
could just send a letter. I would agree with Mark.
Okay, so to agree the way forward is to correspond with the tenants. And have we a proposal, please? Mark, seconder, Isabel, all agreed. Thank you. Nature reserve. Okay.
The only thing I've got to report is somebody's made a complaint about one of the trees on the edge of the nature reserve following the recent storm.
Complaining on what?
That it's swaying and it's got dangerous limbs. Well, they say it's dangerous limbs, but
Okay. So, was that the tree what was in question beforehand?
no, I don't believe so.
Okay. So we need to have a little look at our trees down there and see what's going on.
Well, that should be encompassed when we get our new tree report, shouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So are everybody happy with the nature reserve? Yes. Good. Brilliant. Thank you. Harwich Bank.
Haven't got anything.
Fantastic. And neither have I at the moment. Obviously, it was agreed for the sign to go on the gate, so thank you for everyone. So, can we get that ordered, please?
Where from? I thought you were
So,
getting it from.
Oh, you want me to do it, do you? I didn't get paid last time.
You didn't put in a bill.
I did. I gave you the invoice.
No.
Yeah, I did. Right, so I'll
So you
organise
want
that.
me to do it then?
If not, I will. I was told, because it got my name on it, it wouldn't be paid.
Oh, maybe, yeah, 'cause I
Yeah.
haven't got an invoice.
Right, okay, so do because I was at Stuart, oh, I can't say.
Yeah.
So,
I've got it.
right, to resolve to agree the plans for community gardening, to resolve to agree the budget for the plants, okay? So, the community garden, this is covering, obviously the churchyard,
No.
no?
No.
Okay,
But you've got another item for the churchyard.
okay, I know I see churchyards on
Yeah. We have put in a budget for next year, haven't we?
Mhm.
So it's what element, obviously we've got but are we using all of that towards the Jubilee garden or are we not?
So just community gardening, so I didn't know what that was.
Well, the whole point was that we didn't know what we were going to be able to achieve because we didn't know whether there was going to be a group that was going to set up. They obviously are not wanting to set up as a group, so we cannot plant areas other than what we manage. So we've got the churchyard and we've got Castle Park. So it's what element are we going to use all of the money that we put into next year's budget to do the Jubilee garden and use what little bit we've got in the budget for this year, because the churchyard will need to be planted and ready for the Jubilee celebrations, because that's where the focal point is going to be, isn't it? So that's what we need to decide is how much are we actually going to put towards what things.
Okay.
I mean, yes, we put in that application for the Jubilee garden and stuff like that as well, but you may or may not get that.
So this is basically splitting it between the two areas.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. So, Stephen?
The churchyard, thankfully, there's some nice sustainable planting in there and bulbs that are going to come up to help assist the scheme. The Jubilee garden in Carter's Park, I believe we created that from scratch. So I would say a 60-40 split on the budget. I think the budget we put in was £1,000 for planting, to give a boost to the Jubilee, but also a good bit of that budget going into the churchyard, because that's got to look fantastic whatever happens. But you can create some, and there's going to be shrubs and stuff that are out there that are more, you know, if you want an instant, that's the difficulty, because when you normally plant something, you plant it and it grows, a bit like the Paul's garden in the churchyard, and that looks lovely now. The box edging's all done and stuff, but that was very small. But obviously the more budget's going to be needed in the garden side of it than the churchyard, because they're just...
Well, we have got currently, we haven't spent it, presuming, there's £80 in this year's budget for plants, and that hasn't been spent at all, has it?
It's 80.
80, which is not a lot, I know, but that can go towards the churchyard, can't it?
Yeah.
So it's really knowing what we're able to do and how we're going to split this budget, because we're soon going to have to start getting plants, quite honestly.
And they're not cheap.
No.
I think I'd go with similar to what Stephen said, 60-40 split in the sense of Jubilee garden, and then the remainder in the churchyard to just infill what we need. If we're looking at other areas, for instance like the railings and other areas like that, is that something that, like, potentially people could plant seedlings up, grow them on, get them to a point and then donate them to us?
Once we have got any permissions that we need, because we don't know about those planters on the railings, we haven't actually got the licence for those, and currently we're still trying to find out whether they're district or
We do.
LCC, I think. The other bit, the big planters, that's fine, that's easy, because we know they're LCC and that licensing for that is going through, but the ones on the railings, we don't know.
Okay.
Now, I mean, frankly, there's nothing stopping anybody if they want to go along and plant them, they can plant them. Ultimately, if somebody then comes and takes them away, then they're going to lose the plants. But if somebody wants to do that, they can do that.
Okay.
You know.
Okay, so to resolve, we agree the budget for the plants. So we're saying 60-40? Sorry, Steve.
I think there'd be, that's sort of...
Do
That's like, do I, do or not? Because obviously they're the beautifulest areas, and you know we've got a big step to hit because of how delightful they've been all through the years, which we're very grateful for. One of the points that you just said is I have noticed that the tier planters and stuff are still dotted about all over town, and obviously they're not in our areas, they're on South Holland or the one land that's not owned by us. Are people going to expect us to plant them? Because I was hoping that the route would materialise and go forward, but we're going to be left with, you know, that school there, are they going to plant that planter? And things like that, because at the minute they've just been left, and it's like, but are they going, or are they staying, or you know, if we haven't got the licences, it's just very, very difficult. That budget, I think, in the churchyard and the Jubilee garden, that split to me is whatever we don't spend in the churchyard, we can add into it and work with it. But all the other areas, we can't really calculate them until first of all we know ownership and got licences, knowing whether schools are going to plant the ones outside there and who's going to do the one down Hallgate and things like that. You know, are they going? You know, it's a plan that they're going to be removed. I don't know.
Okay, Mark?
I think in relation, because the initial setup was to have a community gardening group, do we have a liaison point of contact for anyone that did want to? I know it sort of like started really well, but then the second meeting there was very few people turn up for that. But is there a liaison person that we can, you know?
We've got names of the
Yeah,
ones that
names.
came to the meetings.
Okay.
I mean, the idea would, obviously the idea would be that once we've got a project up and running, we contact them and say, we're going to be doing this, do you want to get involved? But they were very clear at the second meeting, they did not want to become a constituted group. So therefore, if they're going to not want to be a constituted group, they can't do things off their own back, can they?
Okay, right, sorry, but I'm going to come back to the agenda. To resolve to agree the budget for the plants. Are we doing 60/40? Can I have a
Yeah.
proposer, please? Isabel, seconder? Stephen, are we all agreed? Thank you very much. Right, to resolve to agree to buy plants for the closed churchyard, ready for the Jubilee. Now we're going to touch on this subject,
I'm
okay?
not going to speak now.
Okay?
Right, that is basically, knowing what budget I've got will then determine how, how we're going to.
spend.
Yes,
and what
because
we're gonna put in.
obviously the Jubilee garden is a longer project
Mm.
and it's going to take longer to create. The closed churchyard needs to be planted fairly soon.
Depending on what we're putting in.
Yeah, depending on what we're going to put in there, but we need to start thinking about how that's going to look. We need to move around some of the pots and get rid of any that have had it and that sort of thing. So again, we need to be clear about how it's,
How are we going to look after them? Who's watering?
hopefully, if they're sustainable, they're not going to need a lot of water, are they?
Sustainable, but they still will need water.
Well, they'll need watering, but we haven't got a means to water, have we? So, but what else do you want to do? Just leave the pots like they are?
No, I certainly don't, because I like the closed churchyard, but I just want to make sure we're going to the effort of planting it and making it look nice, that we look after it, basically. So that's somewhat, just considering what you're putting in,
Oh, yeah.
it will be,
That's the whole point. And they need to be able to be fairly sustainable, that you're not going to need to water them loads. You don't need to be in there every day watering them. That defeats the whole object, doesn't it? Stephen?
I think, with the right plants in there, I remember a conversation many years ago where the actual parks team used to water the smaller areas. So, it might be that we're scheduling a watering cycle at some point, if the
we're
whole
going to
period.
have to.
But, at the end of the day, I think if we are planting the right, real, lovely plants that don't need that much,
There is low
water.
maintenance, yeah.
you can still make a great
Oh, of
display.
course.
So I'm all up for that. I'll help you if I can on the planting scheme.
So we're resolved to agree to buy the plants for the closed churchyard ready for Jubilee.
Yeah.
Proposer, please. Stephen, seconder? Mark, all agreed? Thank you very much. To resolve to agree next month's work schedule.
Yeah, I did notice it. There was quite busy. It's like a busy time for the team, isn't it? Quite a bit in the road.
That was just the draft one, it wasn't.
Oh,
Yeah, I just put it up there so people could see. So
but it was on the agenda file. I did.
Yeah.
At least you now read it.
yeah, it was just showing what things had been on there. So there it is.
She's a bit slow today, isn't she?
I think it's some days the signal isn't very good through the wall. So the Bowls Club hedge, that can come off now, can't
Yeah.
it?
I think it's just the tidying up now, isn't it?
Then, yeah.
It's pretty much.
Mm.
You can't do any more major hacking.
Oh, no,
like
no,
that,
just
so-
you said it's going to get it on the ground and just let it tidy.
Fence around the old dog run,
Yeah.
that's still
Yeah.
on there. Hedges Park Road,
Well, I'll have to come
come
on now.
off now. Yeah,
Yeah, it's going to
what do you agree?
We're
Yeah.
going to definitely.
Trees, Netherfield, that's there.
There's the planting and
The slide, Carter's Park.
That's just to keep to monitoring it. If
Yeah.
it gets dangerous, that's all.
Carter's Park, trees along Park Road.
Yeah, that's not really. Not
Take
there.
it off.
Yeah. These re-adding back in later in the year.
Play equipment general, that's staying on. Car park here.
For those that are not aware, it's just getting rid of the holly bush and everything, getting that taken down, and then we just want to spray, mark out spaces so that people can clearly see where the parking is, so that we try and solve some of the issues.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
And while they're here, we could get them just tidy up around that.
Yeah, nice.
And then chip in risk assessments and paperwork, which is ongoing.
I can't think of anything else for red.
No, I think that's enough for red,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Does anybody else got any input for red? No? No? Okay. Amber?
Amber is Hallgate, weeding paviours, Memorial Garden needs tidying, then weed fortnightly and prune all trees. Can they still prune trees or not?
No.
Not really.
No. So take out pruning trees. Reduce the rose bed.
Yeah.
Make
So you
sure
need to get that ready for grass seeding.
Nature reserve general tidy up and bird boxes. Grass cutting Hallgate, we'll take that off because
You'll have to take the bird boxes out now as well, because you don't want them messing
You
around
can't
the
put-
trees.
right.
Because you can disturb what's already there.
Well, you can put them up when there's no bird boxes, because there's no birds nesting in there.
No, but do you want to be seen messing about the trees?
Because we put the them owl boxes up in the bed in the middle of summer. Well, them duck things in the nature reserve.
Yeah, you okay?
I think as long as they're sensible, if they can find a suitable area for them to go without disturbing, then
Yeah.
absolutely fine. But
Okay. Yeah.
And take out the Park Road, cutting back all trees and canopy,
Yeah.
take that out now. The allotment site measuring, the cedar at Park Road, we need to discuss that now. Okay.
Okay,
Play inspection works and the soft closure gate to the play equipment, Carter's Park.
yeah, that will need doing.
really, to be honest, the players inspection works is what we've got under the red.
Yeah,
it's
play
just a-
equipment general.
Yeah,
should
because
take
we,
that
yeah,
out.
because it is a matter of going through that whole report and working, there's key things that need to be done before the season starts, really. So it's a matter of just working through them, so it is red, but it's not a full on, gotta do it all at once.
Okay. Everybody happy with the work schedules?
Anybody got anything else?
I can't think of anything that I know at the moment.
It's fine.
So, that's the report on, where am I looking? So, can I propose it, please? Mark, seconder, Stephen, all agreed? Thank you. To resolve to agree the price for the computer servicing. Okay, I see there's only two come back.
You can't, unless you go into closed session, you can't discuss the names, you can only
No, I'm not
discuss the
discussing
price.
names. I'm just saying that we've only had two responses.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, are they both, do they need to come and collect, or are we going to have to deliver to them?
I didn't ask that question to be perfectly honest.
I know one
I know
collected
more
before,
expensive
yes.
that did it before.
Yeah, because that might have an impact on.
We had to take it there. So, if you have to take it to the other one,
Mm.
it would be the same.
Because looking at the pricing, then there's a clear one that you would go with, but you just need to
Depends on the other
clarify.
factors.
Yeah. But by the time you've got a second person to follow and bring them back and they
Yeah.
go fetch it, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's cost you more money
I
than...
think you'd have to do that with both of them. But the more expensive one, you have to do that.
Do they not, I thought they collected.
Right, because we've had a expenses claim for going down
I think they collected on the service, didn't they, last
Oh,
time?
they did, yeah.
When they serviced, not when it was the repairs or anything.
No, this was when it was serviced, I believed, but I.
Just for the check.
Yeah.
I think if you just clarify
I
with
think
both
we
of
asked
them as
that.
to whether they collect or not, and if there's a
Yeah.
price difference then,
Mm.
and then go with
The cheapest.
the cheapest.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
So, propose that we get a little bit more information.
Yeah, but then get it done as soon as.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
due to be serviced, isn't it?
Yeah, so go for the cheapest, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as it's
Okay.
collected.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll
Thank you.
propose that.
Thank you, Stephen. Seconder? Mark, all agreed? Thank you very much. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
To resolve to agree to sign for automatic play inspections. Okay. So have you had correspondence from them? They're offering this?
So they just come, you put the diarise you so that you don't have to do anything about it. Doesn't get forgotten automatically, which is all, I think it's been done in the past like that,
It
hasn't it?
has, yeah, because the issue is it's sort of stretched beyond where it should normally be
Mm.
because of COVID and everything else, so it would be much easier if it's a roll-in. I mean, if we
Like I
review
said, if
it,
they go away
provided,
too much.
yeah, as long as we review it yearly and see what the pricing is.
Yeah.
But there are very few people out there that
Oh,
actually
yeah,
do it,
yeah.
so.
Yeah, I mean, right, to resolve to agree to sign automatic play. Can I have a proposer, please? Isabel, seconder? Mark? All agreed? Thank you very much. So, yeah, if you can look into that and then we can review it when it happens. To receive a report on recent allotment training. So that was you.
Yeah, I did a report which I put up to give information. I also looked up, yeah, I mean, everything's in there. Things that we don't do correctly, we should give notice for allotment inspections, which we currently don't do. If anything is wrong, we should be giving 28 days notice to improve or submit mitigating circumstances or a plan of action. If nothing is done in this time frame, then give a further notice of 14 days and then after this a notice to quit, saying they must remove all sheds, goods, etc. Something that was rather interesting was under the Sale of Goods Act 1977, we then have a duty of care for what's left behind. So if somebody disappears, as in the case of the 3 that we've just taken back, we have no way of contacting anyone to take their stuff away. So the goods that are there are our responsibility. We should have an allotment inspection policy, which
Sorry,
There is a way around that. That if the new tenant were to pay you a minimal amount,
to
then
take it on.
it becomes theirs.
Yeah. 75% of each plot should be cultivated. Livestock and hens, you should check local bylaws, but if they have more than 50 hens, they need to be registered with DEFRA, but I don't believe
we
anyone.
would get 50 hens on there anyway, because if 75% of it's been cultivated, you take a lot of it with a chicken coop, 50 hens.
Bonfires near a public highway come under environmental protection. So I looked up, and it's local bylaws, so I looked up and put what I found from South Holland's website, from their environmental protection team, sorry, it's called now. And basically, agricultural land is prohibited from making dark smoke emissions. So,
Only dark smoke,
any dark smoke.
no popes in.
It does actually go on to say what shade
Yeah.
of grey it is.
Mm.
Is it not sure?
Asbestos. Now, this was an interesting fact. If there are asbestos sheds, as long as they are not damaged, they can be left in situ. The duty to manage asbestos is part of health and safety legislation, which says If it is in good condition, leave it alone and don't touch it. Should never let people put carpets on allotments because it's goes to ground contamination, contaminates the ground. We should write a risk assessment policy for each site. And our policy should say that plot holders should take out their own insurance and be responsible for and have the liability of visitors and children. We should have a notice board at each site with our allotment rules and regulations. And under another law, we have a duty to erect warning signs saying there are dangerous tools and chemicals on site, even if they don't belong to us. And it just says the average size of an allotment plot is 10 poles or 250 square metres. And the average rent for that size ranges from £25 to £100.
Okay.
So it's rather interesting facts.
Yeah. Well, I think that's
And
good.
all the documents that came with the training, I put for everyone to see. So
Fantastic, thank you very much. So, that's all good. So, that's the report from the allotment training. Hope you all learned something there. To resolve to recommend to full council the review of the following policies. So, we've had some nice reading over the last few days.
Yeah.
So, everybody happy for me to go through them one by one and we agree them? Or if there's people who want to make comments, please just stop me and make your point or something you want changing or a
I
question.
think I'll put the application form up, sorry.
Okay. So, everybody happy for me to continue in that way?
Yeah.
Yeah? Fantastic. The allotment policy. Any questions, please?
Well, one thing that you will need to do now is amend all the items where it says about having the allotment
Yeah.
officer. So that's the definite one. And then obviously you've got your highlighted areas that you need to look at.
The table of contents numbers are all wrong because I knew I'd have to take stuff out, so I'll amend them when I put the correct things in. So the first one is 314, the non-cultivated leisure area. You want that as is?
I just found that quite amusing. But then somebody does have a patio area down at one of the allotments and sits down there and has a cup of tea, which is quite nice, really. So are we happy for that number 14 to be
314.
314, sorry. I can't see that bit then.
Can't see why it can't stand.
Leave it in.
Yeah, I'll believe it.
Okay.
Then, yeah, so we need that one left in where on 6.2 I've highlighted leisure areas because I wasn't sure if 314 was to be left in. And I think you've answered 7.2 about fruit trees already, haven't you?
Yeah.
So, leave that where it is.
The piece I wanted to ask questions about was about the hens.
We haven't got any allotments with livestock on, have we?
No, we haven't.
Not
I've
on
never
any
known
of
it
this.
crop up before, neither. But I can't remember anybody asking or actually even seeing about that. So do we just have no livestock? Yeah. I think that's such an open area.
You could, and you'd leave them unattended. I mean, that's to me is not right.
Yeah, well this is my thoughts and
Yeah.
we have got,
If they got out and on the road and oh god, it'd be a nightmare.
yeah.
So
So
the
I'm quite
first
keen
bit
on that one.
is 8.1, which is hedges and ponds. So tenants are responsible for maintaining any hedge.
Yeah, but if they're,
Maximum height of 2 metres seems quite
I don't
high.
see, I wouldn't want to encourage people planting hedges down there because obviously we're sticking to this rule of like the percentage of cultivated land. Is a hedge cultivating it?
No.
So you're now taking that
We
out of the
haven't,
equation.
yeah, we haven't currently got any
No.
hedges on any of our areas. So I would
I don't
not have any mention of hedges.
And if someone moves off, then we're left with a hedge.
Yeah. Do you want me to take out ponds as well?
But definitely, because any open water is another risk factor, isn't it?
So if I take out all 8,
Yeah.
Do we need to put in there that no hedges permitted then?
no hedges or ponds permitted?
Yeah, just put a blanket in.
Sorry.
I think 8.4 more or less covers that, doesn't it? No conifers or invasive screening plants such as bamboo or willow may be planted as hedging on allotment area, allotment land. Just adapt that to be
Yeah,
hedges in general.
So no hedges or ponds. Ponds permitted.
I can't imagine anybody want to put a hedge down there. That's time consuming.
Plot use and storage, so 9.4 is what people thought of that. Can you see it?
How are you going
Yeah,
to
I
monitor
just-
that?
Yeah, but again, you're saying about for infrastructure and whatever. The problem is you're giving them 12 months to use it. They're going to store all sorts of rubbish down there if you're not careful. I mean, quite honestly, if they're going to be building a shed or whatever from scratch, they're just going to bring the stuff, build it, and that's it. I don't think you should encourage any storage of any.
So if you change that to no construction
You don't-
materials,
do you need to
paving
put-
and timber for,
Do you have to have anything at all there?
take the whole thing out?
Yeah.
The whole of 9.4.
Mm.
I'll alter this tomorrow. Right. Now the bonfires bit.
Well, it's a carte blanche, no bonfires. I know you're saying about different colours. Who's going to monitor this colour and this colour and everything else?
I think the biggest point in reading that document and looking at it, it's an offence for someone to do that, and people freely do it in their own gardens, and you've got a different rule for domestic to when you go over to something like something that's commercial owned or a business or an allotment. So we stick by them rules. It's like no bonfires.
So if I take out,
At least when you're at home, you can look after it.
Take it home and burn it if you want to, because at home you can, and did they class it as a public order offence? Yeah. If you burn rubbish in your garden at home, it's completely different.
And there's
law.
new rules now for council tenants to burn.
I don't know.
Yeah.
so bonfires are strictly prohibited.
Yeah.
Which makes it clear.
Yeah.
And then 11. So 11.7, that whole thing can come out, can be burned in incinerator.
Yeah.
No.
So let's delete that bit. Structures and fences, shall that bit leave in, but take out the highlights. Now, tenants may put up no more than, it says 2 sheds and no more than 2 greenhouses, including polytunnels.
See, but
But that one's quite small, aren't they?
they are quite small, but sometimes when you have people down there with 2 or 3 allotments, obviously they've got big areas. So I think sticking to the 2.
Yeah, but or you just stick to the whole thing of the 25% that is non-cultivated. I mean, it's
Can I make an observation that if my understanding is that if somebody gets an allotment, because it's all put to a certain size, yeah, just because they've got a second allotment next door to it doesn't double the size of the first allotment. Each allotment is an allotment in its own right. So you would never allow you to put 2 sheds and a polytunnel on one allotment because it's just not big enough. Just because you know, if then they had the next door, and then put another shed there. No, it's the same rule for each plot.
Okay.
The plot sizes are not resized just because you have 2 or 3.
So it says here, no more than 20% of the allotment.
Mm.
Is that too big, too quiet?
No, it's about right.
Yeah, we were saying about 75 cultivated.
Because normally you know you shed, you've got a few bits, probably seats, someone to sit and have a cup of tea, shelter from the rain. It's got to be big enough for somebody to get in it.
I think you've got the caveat in there as well, at the end of 12.3, saying permission must be granted from the council for sheds, polytunnels and such like anyway, so.
And we can say
Can't be had at the
yeah,
full council.
what size is it? You know, it's a question we ask. Yeah.
Okay.
Livestock,
Here we go.
okay. So dogs must be brought up a part of the site and kept on a lead at all times, that's fine. Tenants barking dogs, burial of pets, placing of beehives is strictly prohibited, placing of bee agreement.
Do we need the bees on there by the agreement? If we're saying no livestock completely,
They're saying no beehives and then placement of bees on site without a bee agreement will be subject to removal.
do we want to go down the route of a bee agreement?
No.
No, I think that the point being is that they are so endangered. You know, people are almost encouraging it, but the fact is we've got an allotment. Somebody could be allergic to bees right next to it. It's not an appropriate place to have
No.
a beehive, although you would think it is because it's out of the way and there's no houses. But I can understand why they've referenced it in the policy because it's a specific as opposed to an animal.
Shall I change 14.6 to no animals or livestock may be kept on allotment land?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the way it says here, kept overnight. It's going to stay there the night. So we go for the night out with the chickens to the
Right, so the rent year runs from, some allotments are different to others, so I think I'm going to have to take out when the rent year runs from.
So a lot of people in
So some have 2 payments, 1st of April, 1st of October, and some just have 1st of October.
it. Okay.
So it depends which allotment site it is.
So are we saying that each site could be different, but the plots within that site are the same?
Yeah. No,
Oh,
some are.
bit weird.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
So if I take out that whole rent year runs from,
Yeah.
yeah,
Can we not pro-rata them and then run them as per that date?
so the rent year runs from 1st of October to 30th of September for certain sites, and 1st of April to 31st of March for other sites. Yep.
Okay. Is everybody happy with that?
And then, something more. Change of address. Now, if
Yes,
a
we're
tenant
gonna
moves
use
to an address outside of the boundary of the Holbeach Parish Council, they will have their rent adjusted, have their rent adjusted to the outside. Now, we don't have an outside parish rate.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about because I hadn't heard of that
No.
either. Because obviously the question cropped up a little while ago and someone from out the parish,
So if
Ask
somebody
them.
moves out of the parish, what do you want to do?
or what if someone inquires from outside the parish, do they,
They,
what
Well,
happens?
the way I was told was that you give to people from the parish first. So if you've got the next person on the waiting list is from outside the parish and you've got lots of other people, the other people get priority, yeah,
Parish
because
gets priority,
they're
right.
from within the parish.
So,
Should we not have a relinquish clause then, that if people, because normally if people are moving out, they're moving miles away, and it's like they're not going to come all the way back to Holbridge to keep their allotment, surely. And just really, if you're moving out of parish, that you relinquish your allotment.
what if they're moving to the next village and want to keep the allotment? Will you
No,
make
they-
that optional?
Yeah, make it the option instead of complicating it. So if they're moving miles away, they're not going to want to give it up anyway, I thought.
So how do you want me to,
So we're saying-
moves outside of the boundary of Holbridge Parish Council?
And do we do the same boundaries obviously for our elections? Because obviously you can live, was it 2 mile from the boundary in Stamford, but each
3.
is it 3? So it's quite a distance. So,
Well, can we not just put in there that they obviously sort of like contact the clerk and it'll be done on a case by case basis,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I think that's the best way.
If they want to retain it, they can retain it and then we can decide then what then.
Can I just check, are we going to go through every single one of these policies like this? Because I do have a 7 o'clock meeting to go to.
yeah, well,
Yeah,
it's
no, I
just
think this was
highlighted,
the
so-
only one that
it was
had
a big one.
highlights in, yeah.
I just wanted to check because I've only got.
Yeah,
to
I've
get
got
ready.
other things I should be
Sorry,
doing.
I don't mean, yeah, it's just. Well, it's been temporary,
Basis. And that's it for that
Okay.
one. Is everybody be happy with that one?
So we have to take on board?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Cemetery fees hasn't changed. Cemetery rules and regulations, I think all I put in was,
You said the allotment of application form wasn't on the
no, it
drive.
wasn't on there.
Does anything
So
change
that's,
that?
no.
Brilliant.
Cemetery rules and regulations, I think I just put in, to take out the facing a headstone male should be interred
Yeah.
on the left, because that is not a legal requirement, that is, we can still do it, but it's not a legal requirement. Please see what I added, these are the bits I added in, please see memorial regulations, it's the memorial regulations policy.
I just had a query on that one.
Yeah, is that the memorial policy?
Yeah, when you get
Stephen?
to it, I'll.
Okay.
Yeah,
So that's the only
So
thing we're
that's-
removing from that.
that's on that one.
Okay.
And then memorial applications. Which is the memorial policy, regulations, sorry. Right, where's my to the approved council drawing, shall I?
And this is the bit you've got
that is what the wording is on when we grant a memorial, so I just put it within the policy.
Is that what your question is, Steve?
It was a bit where the placement, where it says at the head of the grave.
Yeah,
That was my query.
yeah. So do you want me to put head, foot of the grave? Because Park Road has them both
Or
ways.
either. And I just think if we tidy it up here, it means that when the policy is approved, we've covered
I see.
questions that have been brought to council previously.
Yeah, so if I put head/foot, is everybody happy with that?
Otherwise, you don't get the back-to-back.
No, absolutely.
headstone.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Is there anything else in that one? Now, I consulted with local stonemason about the average size of a headstone. He gave me his thoughts, and then he suggested I went to Hallgate and measured some, which I did. These have been sort of rounded up to the nearest inch centimetres. So once you set that, then we can, it's something for her to work
What's
to.
written on that signage going into the wall, because there's a sizing on there,
Is there?
isn't there? Yeah.
I didn't look there, I didn't know. Yeah.
This is where we picked it up last time, wasn't it, when I said about the
Yeah,
sizing?
you did. So do you want me to check what it says on there?
Yes, please.
Check what's on gate signage. I'll do that in a minute. Alright, that's so the opinion, I think that's it. Oh, the remote, no, I just added in, because Rachel asked me about the Memorial Rose Garden.
Just
So
make
that
sure
was-
we just have one type of rose, and that we supply the rose. Okay? Yeah, brilliant. Sweet. All done. You look inquisitive. No?
I'll do as I'm told.
Never. Go on. Right,
Right,
Next.
so that's that one. Memorial plaque applications, which is part of that policy. Scattering of ashes policy, I don't think we changed anything in there.
No.
No. Play equipment policy is new. Tree and log policy.
Yeah, there was something in
yeah, it was
that.
about the closed churchyard, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, but that is right.
Yeah, so
That
I
is
just, I think
right,
I
the-
highlighted it because it
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
The
something.
one bit I want you to change
Mm-hmm.
is that it says that the parish council defer to the clerk to be able to determine how the logs are disposed of and if they are saleable, and if so, to achieve the best price, should they have any value. They will be sold on a first come, first served basis.
Which, no, where is that? Sorry, is that?
That's under all the other bit about the parochial church. It's the next bit under there. It's for the best price, that's what it is. It's not a first come, first served basis at the discretion of the clerk.
Because you won't know if you got the best price of that.
No. So it just needs modifying that it's just purely,
Yeah,
if
put
they
that
are
in
going to be, if they are going to be sold, then it's best price.
Did you write?
No, I didn't.
Are you sure?
What's it?
No, this, I picked this was already
Yeah.
written.
Yeah, it was you.
No, it weren't. Nothing to do with me.
Clerk, no, so it's the bit
Good point.
highlighted, is it?
No, it's
just-
under
no,
the bit
paragraph
highlighted,
bit
or
highlighted.
the paragraph underneath the bit you highlighted.
Oh,
It says-
you got it?
It's a duty to ensure that all councillors.
Yeah. So, just best price.
It just needs tweaking slightly.
So.
So if we deal with the tree in the churchyard, the closed
Yeah.
churchyard, and our staff cut it,
Yeah.
and then the church said, well, we want it, so we have to
Yeah.
pay the sell, the work, you know, we have to pay for the work to be done, but then
Yeah.
they can sell the logs
Yeah,
and keep the
pretty
money.
much.
Okay.
Think of it as a good thing.
We do lots of those.
I'll do that.
Allotment.
And then the allotment inspection policy, which was just a new one. Allotment site inspection policy.
I think the bit there says quarterly. We used to, I remember meetings gone by where they say, "I've nothing to report, nothing to report." It'd actually be quite nice to have something reported on a quarterly basis, I think. From there, I quite like that, as opposed to nothing to report, because obviously we know.
It'd be
that-
nice to have people go down there and have a look.
Yeah.
Well, I think now that you've got your policy set very clearly about what is allowed and what's not allowed, there are several that I can think of immediately that are already pushing those boundaries. So you're going to need to do an inspection
Pretty quick.
fairly soon after that is issued, and then try and deal with those issues going through the year, aren't you?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. So we're agreeing to take all of those to full council, yeah?
Yeah.
Right.
Do you want to take all propose?
Stephen, second. Mark. All agreed? Thank you. Resolve to agree to commence date with the grass cutting contractor.
Very soon.
Not yet. It's too wet. It is, we went down around Netherfield and Hallgate and through the park and everything when the wind, and it was absolutely sodden everywhere. If they take any equipment on there currently, and I noticed there's a big rut in the closed churchyard where
I've seen
somebody's
that.
taken a vehicle across. So we don't really want
It's got to
too
dry
much
out a
on
bit.
it. Yeah.
End
So
of March.
I think if we inspect again probably in a fortnight and then meet with contractor to discuss like we did last year,
Yeah.
that's the best way.
I think it was about end of March last.
No, it wasn't. It was mid-March we started last
Was
year.
it?
Yeah. But we did it fortnightly initially.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, then can't remember when we went to weekly. So then we had another meeting, then it went weekly.
yeah.
Are you happy for that? Proposer? Stephen, sticking up as well, all agreed? Thank you very much. Right, I need to reorder the agenda. Can't remember why now.
You need to reorder the agenda to put the closed item,
That's it.
agenda item at the end of the meeting.
So, reordering the agenda from the proposer, Stephen, Isabel, all agreed? Thank you. So, obviously 168 will go to the end of the agenda now. 169, items of discussion, agenda item requests, you know you can always send them in within time. Anything?
I just put on about the bringing back information about the signage for the Hallgate Cemetery.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and always get your stuff in sorted. Right, to confirm date and venue of next open spaces meeting. It'll obviously be here.
No.
Well, where would you like it, Steve? Nice day in the park.
Yeah. It'd be nice to have a meeting.
So,
Can't the closed session, sorry.
can't, 4 weeks today you can't have because that's planning.
Right, they'll have to do, won't they?
Can't do the 29th, but I can do the 30th.
Of March, jeez. That's scary.
End of March, that'll be.
30th of March, yeah, that's right.
So what day are you on?
30th of March.
Well, I'm at work till
Wednesday.
6:30.
Which day are you off?
I'm off on Monday and Tuesday.
I can't do, well, you can't have Monday because.
What
it's
about
planning.
Thursday the 24th?
Well, planning's not until 6.
Why don't we do it early then? Because if I can sneak out of work and people are
I was
free.
going to say,
Mark,
do
are
it
you,
earlier.
are you at
What time do you finish on Monday?
On Monday, I can be here for R4.
That's not long enough, is it?
Yeah, but
You
the
would-
policies
Yeah.
took up the time today,
Yeah.
Stephen.
I think you could do it. If you did have a score, we're not
Oh, you
meeting until
wouldn't be able to do it.
6, are we?
Can any of these meetings be filmed and you do the minutes later?
Not really, no, you should be here because I'm here, the whole idea of the clerk being at the meeting is to guide on,
Pardon.
Well, I'm just thinking if you're doing
Stuff,
2 meetings back to back.
That's all
We'll
right.
have an assistant
We
next
will
week.
have an assistant.
Okay.
We can start.
Right, that's what I'm just mindful at the moment.
Could we say 4:15? Would you be able to get here by 4:15?
Ooh, depends on traffic.
Yeah, I should be able to.
Well, if we
I think
start,
walking
If you
past
get any
there-
speeding
If not,
tickets,
I'll just come in
Yeah.
part way through this one.
yeah, but any speeding tickets can't be billed to the parish council.
Oh, you're off on the Tuesday as well?
Yeah,
It's a
Monday and
Tuesday,
Tuesday
do it.
I'm off.
I can't do Tuesday.
No.
do that, and then 2 meetings on one day is probably more sensible in a lot of
Yeah.
ways, isn't it?
I'm here
I think
anyway.
this is long day.
So 4:30 on the 20.
I'm working, I work
You
through.
don't have to do a
Yeah.
planning
4:15.
meeting anyway, so yeah, it'll make a difference.
So the 28th at 4:15.
Okay.
Lovely, thank you very much for that. Everybody got that?
Yeah.
Brilliant.